Welcome to Status Quo, your home for gaming trends past and present. This is Queasy Crayfish, joined as always by my esteemed colleague,
Mars Vindicator.
That's correct. And we have some interesting topics lined up for you today. We're going to talk about VR. Is it a thing? Is it not a thing? What does it have to do with anything? We're going to talk about, we got another segment of OverUnder. We're going to be talking about, what was it? Console generations. Overrated or underrated console generations. And another edition of Collector's Corner, which we started last week. New segment possibly. Talking about gaming setups, you know, your ideal setup and things like that. Things you sought after, things you finally got later in life. And finally, dead games, which is another thing we kind of touched on last time. But I think it's time to start off with some flake news. Are you ready for some flake news, Mars Vindicator?
Always.
Well, I have some interesting ones, I think, here. Well, number one, Sonic 1 is set to come to Switch along with Thunder Force 4, the first of the two Sega Ages releases for the Nintendo Switch. And that's supposed to come out this fall.
That's flake news.
I know, isn't it?
You know, first of all, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Thunder Force 4 is not on the Sega Genesis collection, right?
No, it's not.
It definitely should have been on there. Thunder Force is a dope shmup. So, I mean, I have a Switch. I'll get it there. But because I don't know if that has online, you know. I feel like Thunder Force 4, maybe it doesn't have multiplayer. But anyways, you know, I just would have loved to see more of those games on the actual collection with online play. Maybe it'll have it. I don't know. But anyways, trash. And then like Sonic 1 sucks. And I don't mean that like Sonic 1 actually sucks, but it's definitely like the worst. I think probably the worst of the good Sonic games.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, because it just didn't age well, and you know, things like the spin dash, for example, like it's.
Well, I think it did say they are adding that, and I think maybe some other moves from Sonic Mania into the game, so that'll be, you know, cheater Sonic 1 basically.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's kind of cool, but I mean, even still, like, and ladies and gentlemen, please, like, when I say Sonic 1 sucks, what I mean is that it's worse than 2, 3, Knuckles, Chaotix. I don't know if I'll say it's worse than CD, but in Mania, like that's what I mean, you know. But so, and I just get tired of seeing it all the damn time.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. It's like, wow, you know, that's the first game you bring. I mean, of course it is, but it would have been nice to see something a little more interesting.
Exactly. And, you know, I probably said this before because I say it like, you know, 7 times a day, but it's just very interesting to now see. Like, I remember coming to your house and I remember when your dad bought I think it was like Namco Museum on the Dreamcast.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, it's an old person playing old games on a new system. How crazy, you know? And I was like, I wonder how they're going to do our games. And like, here we are, like we're well into it now. Like every time I turn around, Sonic is on something else, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sonic 2 3DS, Sonic on Dreamcast, Smash Pack, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection.
Yeah, and it really is like all the time too. So it's kind of boring.
Exactly.
Well, also a Sonic side note. We don't really have to talk about this, but there's a Team Sonic Racing comic is also coming out this fall.
Flake news.
They're making a whole comic about that. Definitely flake news. Secondly, Xbox is apparently set to show off new quote-unquote hardware and accessories at Gamescom in August.
Well, that's pretty crazy. I mean, if they're going to announce like a whole new system, a lot of people are like talking about like the next systems and stuff. I think that we're only about 60 to 70% done with this generation. So I'm not really for new systems at this point, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, me either.
So that's like interesting, but yeah, I'm not excited for that.
Not at all. I'm just wondering, like, what are the accessories going to be? You know, like what could it possibly be?
Right. I mean, well, even the new hardware, because like if it's not a system, what is it that they're gonna make? You know, like they already have the S and the X. Like, are they going to make a
The V?
Yeah, right. And what is that gonna be?
No idea.
Like maybe
8K.
maybe what would be interesting would be like if they made like a totally non 4K Xbox One and it was like $150.
Xbox One Junior.
Yeah, exactly right. Xbox One, Xbox half, you know.
Xbox One is 0.
Exactly.
Yeah, Xbox be a point half, 0.5. So, all right, well, it's something to think about. Dragon Ball Fighter Z is adding normal, quote unquote, normal Goku and Vegeta also in August. I guess this is the coming in August edition of Flake News here.
Okay, coming in August. I mean, I don't know. Like, because I felt. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna just say I think that's complete garbage.
Really?
Yeah. The reason why I say that is because, like, I mean, like I feel like it's an easy way. It was like a very easy way for them to continue to add like big, huge like characters because I mean, yeah, like they could easily just be like, because who's in, I think now, what do we have, like Super Saiyan Goku and then like Goku, Super Saiyan Blue Goku, then they could just be like, we added Super Saiyan 3 Goku, we added Super Saiyan 2 Goku, we added Ultimate Super Saiyan Vegeta, you know, and like all those forms are already like weird enough in the show, but like in the game, I feel like it's just like a trash way that they could just keep adding, you know, heavy names to the series, you know, because Goku, Vegeta, Trunks, Gohan, because there's already, and then like for example, like since Gohan was a child in one half of the anime and then an adult in the other half of the anime, then you could do like a bunch of forms of Kid Gohan and a bunch of forms of adult one. It's just kind of whack. Like I get that, you know, the characters turn Super Saiyan and that obviously changes their power level and blah blah blah. So they should just have the characters turn into those forms in like supers or whatever.
Yeah, or variations or something instead of
like,
discrete and separate characters.
Yeah, because like the DLC, like the day one DLC characters were other forms of Goku and Vegeta, you know, and then
now they're normal. They're releasing normal ones now.
Yeah, and that, I mean, and it's like, and I just don't get how they're doing it, like why they're doing it like this, because I mean, the game is already weird enough. I don't know how familiar you are with like Dragon Ball Z.
Not at all.
But like, yeah, like basic, like, okay, long story short, like you could pick two characters who like in the series, like one of them could like look at the other one and they would immediately die. Like that's like the gap of power in these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's already strange that like they have it like this. So, but I mean, you know, but you'll suspend that to play the game. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's just weird to me.
So Flake News.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Okay. I know this next one you'll really love this one. No Man's Sky Next launches July 24th.
What the fuck?
You know what this is? It's apparently it's a multiplayer mode. So they're finally 2 years later adding a multiplayer mode, and you can see your character. You can play in third person. You can customize your spacesuit and all kind of stuff. And yeah, that's on top of the base building, which they apparently already added some time ago. I don't know, because I haven't played this game in since it came out, as probably a lot of people have, but they're still working on it, I guess. And it's a free update. So some people are wondering, is it time to give No Man's Sky a second chance? Is it finally what it was promised to be?
Well, okay. This is definitely not Flake News. And it's a free update, right? And yeah, I mean, look, as many times as I gave Destiny a try, I can give No Man's Sky another try. You know, and at least, you know, because what happened with No Man's Sky was like what happened with Destiny. Like I went into it with these crazy expectations, you know, maybe a slight bit partial because I boosted them up myself. So this time I'll just go into it, you know, with a clear head. So if it sucks, it'll suck. But if not, it won't.
All right, cool.
It looks cool.
Positive outlook, yeah. And finally today we have Niantic has bought Seismic Games, which is a VR specialist apparently. Of course, Niantic, if you don't know, is the company behind Pokemon Go, the Harry Potter Wizards Unite or whatever game that's supposed to be coming out as well. And they do one other one too. I forget the name at the moment, but yeah, famous mostly for Pokemon Go.
Oh yeah, they do that one where it's like, I know what you're talking about.
Something with
Maybe
an
you
I.
said the
Yeah,
name.
I can't remember the name.
Yeah, and you like find those spots in real life and stuff.
Yeah.
And so who did they buy?
Seismic Games. Yeah, I never heard of them either, but apparently they're VR specialists.
I feel like well, Oh no! Wait, no! Wait! Are they VR specialists or AR specialists?
The thing I read, I believe it's a VR. Unless I'm, completely flake news,
Because
I might be spreading the flake news at this point.
I found an article on Variety and it says AR focused Seismic Games because I guess they did this Marvel game.
Okay,
Marvel Strike Force. I mean, and then another one does say VR. Okay, so the companies, the news, they're spreading the fake news.
They're spreading the flake news
because Game Rant says VR game company.
Okay.
So there,
that was the precise one I looked at. Okay, so they're just AR then. So it's basically just them Niantic buying up a smaller AR company.
Well, yeah, allegedly.
All right.
So, I mean,
we've seen flake news spread in action now,
right? Yeah, I'm like, So be careful, ladies and gentlemen. But I mean, it's cool. I mean. Look, when the 3DS came out, there was like these cards that you could get that came with it, and they like did like AR things, and it was like, oh, this is like kind of cool, but like let me play Star Fox. So I definitely applaud Niantic and Nintendo for like probably making like the first legit for real AR game. Like I know there's been other ones that have been pretty big, but this is like has a huge license, got a crazy initial fan base. People still play it now, and it's going to tie into a real game. So, I don't play Pokemon Go that much because of how I feel about Pokemon, but I recognize its greatness. So this could definitely be dope.
All right. Well, that leads quite well into our first time. Well, actually, not really anymore because we were tricked by flake news, but
exactly.
First topic of the day, VR, is it a thing? And you kind of jumped at this topic when I had mentioned it, so I'm kind of eager to hear what you had to say about this. I always, for VR, for me, I don't own any VR thing. It always seemed just kind of like a novelty or a side thing, but there have been some big notable games that made use of this accessory, the VR visor deal or whatever you call them. And, namely like Resident Evil 7, I think there was what was that Until Dawn, I believe they had like an expansion that was completely VR. Gran Turismo Sport, of course, had that as well. And there's, been notable other games as well. So what do you think? VR?
Well, okay. Before I say this, I have something NSFW to say about this.
Okay.
Is that okay for me to say? It's not super NSFW, but it's kind of.
That's fine.
Well, basically, we all know that certain thing that starts with P that helped the internet gain a lot of popularity, right? And
ponies?
Yeah, ponies. And you can also ride ponies with VR, So, long story short, I just, I don't want to say it's unfortunate. I guess it's kind of weird, but it's like it's just a truth, And I think that could definitely play a big part in VR getting big. And this is talking about like VR as like a consumer item, even outside of just games. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's definitely like a thing. But then going forward, talking about games and stuff, so, okay, all the children, you can come back now. going forward and talking about like just games themselves, I think that we've definitely seen some great VR experiences. Like you mentioned, Resident Evil 7. I mean, that's probably like the key notable one, you know, where we saw like an entire, like this huge franchise, like reinvent itself and make a game that was like pretty much based around it and that worked well for it. What's also been cool is seeing things like Skyrim VR. If I hadn't already played it like 12 times on 12 different systems, but then also upcoming Zone of the Enders 2 VR.
Yeah, that'll be fascinating. That'll be very fascinating.
Exactly. And, you know, so it's like, it's cool. You know, other games, like you can take like older games and put them in this and you can like, you know, have a new way to play them. So, I don't know if it's going to be like the biggest thing. Honestly, like, I think like if like VR, like comparably was like as good as it was during like the 5th generation or even early 6th generation, then I think it would be a really big thing, because at that point in time, like kind of the biggest thing on the market was these like crazy single player epics, you know, like this is when Tomb Raider came out and Metal Gear Solid and Ocarina of Time, you know? So it was like, it was very like a big consumer thing to like have this crazy new technology experience and have it in your home and show it off to people. But like now, like the central, like, you know, like the core of like the gaming world right now is like online multiplayer. Right. Yeah. And so like VR, I don't think like there's online multiplayer VR games for sure, but I don't think it's as good as people quite want it to be yet. And so once that happens, then it'll take off.
So you think this is something that's going to stick around for a while?
Well, yeah,
in the gaming realm. I mean, obviously, you know, with ponies, I mean, you know, of course, everyone wants to ride ponies,
right?
You know, but because that's the thing. I mean, I feel like in the gaming world, peripherals have kind of you know, it's kind of rocky sometimes. Like they don't always take. A lot of times they get rejected. I mean, we saw that, you know, with like the Kinect and everything. I mean, that Microsoft put so much money into that thing, and it was going to be, you know, the next big thing, and now it's just dead. You know, and just, I mean, motion control in general. I mean, the Wii did it quite well and was quite successful with it, but I think, you know, when PlayStation and Xbox tried to do it, it just didn't really take off as much. I mean, they were, you know, popular for a few years there, but, you know, where is it now? And I think a lot of that stuff is just, you know, I mean, if you take way back to light guns and, you know, whatever else, dance pads and stuff like that, it was always, you know, like very specific experiences, and not a lot of people, I think, were willing to shell out the money to buy a lot of these things. And I think that's part of the problem too with VR right now. So I just wonder if it's ever going to become like a staple or something, or maybe there'll be some company that'll come out with a console or a platform that is exclusively VR focused, or there'll be, you know, more big games that are really taking advantage of that. 'Cause that's really what has to happen. So it's something with Resident Evil 7, like, you know, that's big name games have to really support the peripheral and the concept for it to remain a thing, I think.
Right. No, I mean, that's definitely true. You know, and yeah, like I think the points that you brought up about like motion control and things like that, like they are really, really valid. You know, and I think a thing to look at, you know, when we're talking about things like this is like, everybody knows about the Kinect and about the Wii, but we can't forget about, say, like the Genesis activator, right? And so like, I feel like these things, like even like wireless controllers, like if you look it up, like there's Genesis wireless controllers. There were wireless controllers back then, but it was just about the idea of like that technology being like good enough to just like make, you know, be super consumer friendly, and then have it to be like a cheap enough price as well, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think these, like, they kind of come in like these cycles, like they come and then they go and they come and they go. And I mean, and honestly, you know, we can't forget that, like, you know, we're sitting here talking about this in 2018. I mean, video games themselves went through that kind of situation, you know, where video, like, you know, the Odyssey came out and it was just kind of like a fun thing, you know, this crazy technology that like maybe 8 people had. And then, okay, now there's the Atari, and then it died again. And then, oh, well, they're in arcades, and then they died again. and then NES came through and pretty much saved everything,
Yeah. That's very true. I mean, in video games themselves were at a time considered like VR, virtual reality,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. And then, so though, so people had this exact same conversation about video games, probably in 83, before the NES came out, so, and I'm sure even after that, when they were just considered toys for a little while. So, I definitely think it will be here. It's just a matter of it being like immersive enough, and then also being, at a decent price, or like accessible enough.
Okay. So here to stay, you think then?
I think overall, I think that like the PlayStation, like for example, the PSVR will probably trail off, but then, something will come back. It's overall, I think it's on the up, but some things like the PSVR, for example, like are either going to trail off or going to need a better update.
Okay. All right. Well, our next topic for today, well, actually, we're going to go into the over-under segment here, talking about overrated, underrated console generations. And this is something we've discussed numerous times. I mean, just going back and comparing different console generations is a lot of fun to do, I think, just in general. So, overrated console generation, do you have one?
Yes. So, okay. So I just want to be clear with a lot of people. First of all, we're talking about, I think this is the first time we've actually talked about generations on this podcast, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to give you a rundown. First is basically the Odyssey and maybe the Pong. Second is the Atari 2600 and maybe a couple other things. Third is like the NES Master System. Fourth is Super Nintendo Genesis. Fifth is PS1, N64, and Sega Saturn, the one you always forget about. Okay. Dreamcast is in the next one, the sixth, with the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. Seventh, PS3, 360, Wii. And eighth is technically PS4, Xbox One, Wii U. Okay. Technically, but we all know the Wii U and the Switch are kind of So, okay, now that's out of the way. Overrated, seventh generation. Seventh generation is PS3, 360, and Wii. Now, I'm going to go into why it is overrated. Okay. First of all, I think people remember that one pretty fondly. And I have some good memories of it, but it was a very unfortunate generation. We were pretty much coming off of the sixth generation, which, as you just heard me say, had 4 systems in it that were like, the Dreamcast was lagging behind the other 3, but they were closer together than like the Wii was to the 360 and the PS3, right? So in the 7th generation, we basically had a handicapped console. Okay, so let's not forget that. So then we're looking at the PS3 and the 360, and one thing I'll say about this, so I've noticed that video game generations kind of go in in twos, right? So like you always get like the generation where there's like a new technology and they're kind of filling it out. And then the generation after that perfects it. So like NES Master System was like, okay, oh wow, like colorful 2D. Genesis SNES was like perfect 2D. Next, we have weird early 3D, right? PS1. PS2 perfected it, right? So 7th was like the early online, multiplayer shooter, and everything was trying to be worked out. I mean, Xbox had their shit together, but we know PS3's online, definitely left things to be desired. Xbox also, I think, was getting their shit together as a company as a whole, and they went through like some massive changes on the Xbox HUD. And so I think, and there's just, so to me, like, there's such a huge gap between what we got early on and what we got later, And then, as we all know, which we talked about in the last podcast, like Japanese games were pretty much dead during this generation. So there were a lot of like notable franchises and games that were just kind of missing. And while it was cool, it was cool that the West came up, but I think with a lot of those games, we got a whole lot of like commercial crap, So like, if take for example, if you look at like the best game on the 64, right? People will just say like, oh, it was Mario 64 or it was like Ocarina of Time, right? And those games are like legendary. So like these were the games we played the most, and then we also like regard them as legends. But when you talk about like the 360 or like the PS3, like we may say it was like some Call of Duty game, and people may have played it the most, but do people really regard those as like legendary games? You know?
No.
Right, you know, and I know that there's some people out there who may like hold Modern Warfare or Modern Warfare 2 in some high regard, and like I'm kind of cool with that, but it's not like, you know, it's definitely not like Metal Gear Solid, or it's not like Grand Theft Auto 3. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to make it seem like it's a Japanese Western thing, you know, but it was just we got a lot of commercial junk during that generation, and on top of that too, I'll even speak on like the Japanese games at that time. They were just trying to like copy some of that, you know, stuff. So we got a lot of bullshit from them as well. Like even worse bullshit, because it was like bullshit that was trying to keep up with the bullshit, you know. So don't get me wrong, you know, there were some cool things from that generation. We didn't get a true Final Fantasy game. We didn't get a Kingdom Hearts game, you know. There was definitely a lot of stuff missing. So that generation, overrated.
Overrated. I would tend to agree with that. I think that generation had a lot of bad habits, like
Right.
with publishers and developers and stuff that got started to really. It was like they selected some of the wrong things from the sixth generation to carry over.
Right.
And that leads pretty well into what I'm going to say is an
Like the
underrated
iToy.
generation. The iToy. Was that? Yeah. How long did that last?
Well, no, yeah, because the iToy was from the sixth generation, PS2. Yeah. And then the seventh generation, motion control, motion's everywhere. You know, and all that shit is gone. You know,
completely gone. Luckily.
I do want to say one thing about motion control, though.
Okay, go ahead.
Before we go forward. Okay, actually, there's actually one great thing that I like from the seventh generation, specifically on the Wii and the PS3. Light guns don't work on CRT TVs. And with the Move and the Wii, you can play light gun games. That's probably like the only like underrated cool thing about that generation. But everything else is trash. All right, I'm done.
Everything else is trash. Well, I was going to say for underrated, I think, and this is kind of challenging myself because I tend to think that the current generation we're in is like one of the worst. But I think in some ways it is underrated. And I think a lot of the, like I say, the bad habits that got carried out of the sixth generation into the seventh, I think now in the eighth are finally, you know, I guess toward the back end of the generation starting to kind of taper off. And we're starting to see a lot of quality games. I think they're finally kind of figuring out like how to balance things really well. And I thought that with God of War, especially and you know, other recent games. I mean, it's just been like, you know, it seemed like early in the generation and kind of late in the previous one, there was like the game was either super narrative or it was super, you know, just like multiplayer game, you know, all gameplay, you know, divorced from all context and story and everything like that. And finally, I think with games like God of War and stuff like that, you really got a nice balance between the two, and you got what felt like a game again. It felt like something that I had played, you know, in the sixth generation or even before that, you know. And I think that's something that we're starting to see. I feel like they're kind of like hitting their stride finally in this generation, which is nice. And also I think just like even though this generation did begin really poorly, I think you know, it took a long time it took a long time for me to even get a PS4. Just to be, you know, upfront about it. But when I finally did, like, you know, the selection of games was just like, you know, yeah, I know it was choose between like Killzone Shadowfall, which I knew was bad. I mean, the guy, even when I bought my PS4, the guy like talked me out of buying it. The guy who was selling it to me. And it was between that and like Infamous and like Call of Duty Ghosts and Battlefield or something like that, you know, and I bought Infamous. It was one of the most boring games I can remember playing. I played it, you know, just to kind of enjoy having a PS4. And then like once I got something else, I just stopped playing it entirely. And, you know, so that was the case. You know, there wasn't a lot to choose from. But I think at least for me personally, I know others will disagree. Others have had other experiences, I'm sure, but like this was the first generation in a while where like, I got the console and there was just like no problems with it. Like, like it worked really well. The PS4 out of the box, I still have my original PS4, my 360. When I got that, I went through 3 different 360s because they all got, red rings. And it just was like, just didn't seem like a well-built machine. I had this giant power brick and stuff, which I guess, Xbox One still has that, but, the original model. But PS4 just seemed like a really elegantly made machine. It worked really well. I thought the whole, what's the word I'm looking for? The infrastructure, the the menus and all that stuff were just really well done, and easy to use. And I thought that was great. And I thought also like the experience of, for the first time, just buying games digitally, while it's not something I do a lot now because I like to have physical copies, but like, I thought that was amazing. Like when I bought, when Dark Souls 3 came out, I was like so hyped for that game. And it was either like, because I didn't pre-order, so it was either wait until the next day when the stores opened up to go buy a copy or whatever, or, head down to GameStop at midnight or whatever, or just sit at home and just download it and play it. And it was just like, that was such an awesome feeling for me. So I think from a hardware perspective, and from, like you're saying, like the Japanese developers coming back and really producing some quality stuff again, taking some risks, releasing stuff that they may not have thought would sell well in the West again. I think that just really adds up to being kind of an underrated generation.
I could definitely see that. I definitely do like your point of how much better it got. Cause yeah, like to put that into perspective, like you guys know how much I love, Japanese games, right? I lived in Japan when the PS4 came out, and my first game was NBA 2K14. So like, that's like the total opposite of what I even like to play, right? So yeah, like there was nothing out here, nothing out there. But now, like, I can honestly say, like, I can go into like GameStop and there's like a slew of games on the used PS4 wall that I'm like, damn, I need to play that. 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 So like, in terms of like from like beginning to now, how much better it's gotten, like that's 100% true.
Yeah. And I think, even Xbox, because I'm definitely PS4 centric at this point, but like we saw at the last E3, like they have some interesting stuff coming out. They're definitely making a lot of effort. And I think just to go along with the hardware thing, like I was saying, I mean, if you include Switch in this generation, or if you just want to keep it as some weird outlier, I would tend to include it with this generation. Like both of those, like the Xbox One X and the Switch, I think are just like also really nice pieces of hardware. I mean, the Switch works exceptionally well. I mean, you just plug it into the dock. It's up on your TV. You pull it out. It's on your, it's in your hands. It's just like super streamlined, super well done, excellent piece of technology. And to see, the One X doing all this stuff with 4K and everything, and being quote unquote the best place to play every game, I think we're definitely seeing some progress. And I think we're moving more in the right direction again.
Oh yeah, I definitely think so.
All right. Well, I think that'll about wrap it up for our overrated and underrated. Next up, we're going to be talking about, if we want to include this in our collector's corner segment from last week that we thought we might be starting up here, maybe intermittently, maybe not every week, but just talking about things you have, games you've collected, things you bought and stuff like that. Gaming setups. Now, I mean, when I was a kid, it was just the CRT TV. And, like game systems plugged in, with the RF adapter and everything. And I mean, that was pretty much it. I did have the little switcher where you could, switch from different consoles, because I did have, 3 or 4 consoles at some point. But, there wasn't really a whole lot to it. And you were lucky if you had like a little shelf to put all the consoles on, or to put all your games on, or something like that. So now I think it's just interesting. All of the cool stuff, especially with me doing like streaming and YouTube videos and all that stuff, and being involved with the whole Hyper Evo thing. I think, I've gotten a lot more stuff now, and I've got, multiple screens, and I've got, The most interesting purchase recently, I think, was the HDMI cord for the original Xbox, which I think is something, I never would have dreamed up even just a few years ago. It just makes everything so much more convenient, and you have just, limitless possibilities, it seems like, with how you can orient your setup. So, Mars Vindicator, what do you think?
Well, there there's definitely a lot to talk about on this topic, like just like a lot. Shoot, I don't even know where to begin, because there's I basically I have every console, right? And my dream setup would be to be able to just play any one of those consoles at any given time on one television, And it's funny because looking at these generations, I've pretty much panned it out, as to how things go. So obviously for this generation and the last generation, excluding the Wii, everything just works right out the box good with HDMI, right? And then you take the Wii, but you can get an HDMI adapter for that, which is cool. So then you're good to go. Now, when you get to the generation before that, okay, now it's getting a little shaky here. You got to get the HDMI for the Xbox. The GameCube, I've realized, unless you want to pay, out of your ass for the component cables, the best way to just do that system is to just play it on the Wii, right? And then Xbox still has a few games that aren't backwards compatible on either system, so get that, the HD for that if I didn't say that. There's HDMI adapters for the PS2, which is dope. Now, Dreamcast is where we have a damn issue, okay? They have a new HDMI adapter for it, which is cool, but it doesn't look as good as the VGA, right? But who has VGA on their HD TV, So then you got to get an HDMI adapter for that. And then what sucks for all these things is usually these aren't just cords. If you have to have VGA to HDMI for your Dreamcast, that has to be powered separately,
Oh God.
Even the HDMI adapter for the PS2 has to be powered through USB, right? So now you're getting into some stuff here. Now, generation before that is where this is probably honestly the worst one. This hands down the worst one. So PS1, just throw it out of the window because you can play PS1 games on PS3. Okay. So PS1 is, I think, easily the most, it's the most useless console now. Saturn, you can do S video to HDMI. You can use the S card adapter, but there's just nothing that's great. And the same with 64, right? So I'm hoping we get some good HD versions of those. Now, the generation before that, I don't even hook those systems up because, and the one prior to it too, with the NES and the Master System, because you can just get those Retrons, right? So you can hook all that up to your TV with HDMI, use the controllers and everything works good. So, for me, I basically with the exception of the N64 and the Saturn, I can hook up everything and it just works nice and works good. But those two systems are the ones that just give me the most trouble. And it kind of sucks because they're two systems that I kind of really want to get into more, And then let's not even talk about stuff like the 32X, right? Because you can't use, at least as of right now, you can't use a 32X with a Retron, right? So then you have to hook up a Genesis. And then you have the same issues with hooking up a Genesis as you would with a Saturn. What are you going to do? AV or S video to HDMI, and then that adapter has to be powered, and then now you just got all these cords behind your TVs. Other than that, there are 3 other systems. Well, I guess 4 other systems now that really piss me off a lot. Those are the Wii, the Wii U, the Slim PS2, and wow, I just had it in my head and now I can't even remember. The Wii U, the Slim PS2, and the 360. And it's because of those damn power bricks. Mm-hmm. Okay. Running cords is it's wonderful. You just get your ties, but those have these big ass bricks. They have to sit behind your TV or sit behind the system and
catch on fire.
Exactly. And burn your whole damn system down. setup down. So, and actually the Wii U is a huge offender in more ways than one, because then you have to have a totally separate power adapter with a power brick on it for the fucking gamepad. So
really, it has a separate.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it has its own power cord, like that gamepad does. It's like a and it has like a dock and stuff. So it's like, where do I even put this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you put it by the TV? Do you put it like, because I usually have mine next to me, and my adapter for it is like broken right now. So like, that's just, it's a huge blunder. Oh, another thing about the Wii and the Wii U is that goddamn sensor bar.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
that
I was going
shit
to bring that
kills
up.
me.
Yeah, that you just have to have that to even navigate the menus.
Well, for the Wii you do. For the Wii you have to have it. Now the Wii U doesn't make you have it, but you have to have it if you're gonna play Wii games, right? So the Wii U is a little better with like, just, like if you just want to turn on the system and play Smash Bros, you can just do it straight out with a controller, right? But the Wii, that is terrible with that. So that makes playing GameCube games on the Wii just so trash, because like you have to like choose GameCube with the Wiimote, you know what I'm saying?
I know.
And then so if every system could just be like the PS3, it would just be so wonderful. Like the PS3 is backwards compatible, at least with the PS1, and you just have two nice smooth cords without power bricks on them or anything.
Yeah,
that's probably like that PS3 setup wise that's my baby.
Yeah,
everything else is trash.
Yeah, only downside with PS3 is like changing your display resolutions and stuff on there is kind of ridiculous, especially going through a capture card. Which is another thing I want to bring up, is like having capture cards, especially the one I have is able to capture like retro stuff. And like, I was, so excited when I got there. So I was like, oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, you want one. But,
well, no, wow. Now I was thinking about the PS3 with the
PS3. Yeah. It was painful to do that with, but which I'm still trying to get that pretty consistently. But yeah, like I was so excited when I got that capture card, because I was like, okay, yeah, I can record, 64 now, and I can record Sega Saturn and all that. But, lo and behold, like, it can't, the signal is like such low resolution that it can't display it through, the HDMI. Because it goes, from the Saturn into this adapter, into the capture card, and then from the capture card to HDMI to the TV, and then USB to the computer. And it can show up on your computer, but it will not display on the TV because the signal is too low or whatever. And so you have to have another adapter to convert the signal to HDMI before it goes into the capture card. And that has to be powered, of course, right. And it's like, so it becomes really, I have all these things, these like worries now that I never would have even considered before, just trying to record stuff. And the end product is nice. Of course, it's nice to be able to have that, but I just think that's fascinating. That's like years ago, like, the goal was just to have everything on a TV. And now it's like, I think for me now, at least with what I currently do, like the end goal would be like, be able to record or stream or play anything all on the same screen at any time. And that's something I don't have currently yet, but always working on it.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because the reason why you have to even go through all that nonsense with the PS3 is because of that HDCP. So yes. Now because you can't use HDMI. So now actually, yeah, like, so yeah, I outside of the current generation, obviously, I don't know what system is like the most setup friendly. That's actually a really good question. Because the PS3 has a lot of high marks, but then the moment you talk about recording, it becomes bad. The 360 is great, with recording and stuff, and obviously it's HDMI and all that. Well, if you have a later model, but then that power brick is kind of a pain in the ass.
I feel like probably like 1X or something like that's got to be like because even PS4, I don't know if with the Pro it's any different, but PS4, yeah, you do have to disable HDCP in the menus before you can do any of that stuff. But other than that, it's pretty nice.
No, yeah. So that's what I was saying. Like outside of the current generation.
Yeah.
I don't.
Oh, outside of that,
what's like the most setup friendly system
with the HDMI? Probably Xbox or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Actually, no. You know what? I think, yeah, I think you're actually exactly right. And then and obviously not with every game, but the Xbox can do some games in 720 and 1080. So then you could just, those could be captured easily. Because like the capture card I have won't take anything less than 720. So yeah, probably overall with original Xbox with HDMI might be the best thing there. Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, I'm glad I have that.
Right, yes, that thing is dope. I mean, the PS2 is still pretty good. And that's the other thing too about some systems is like, what functions do they bring you? So the PS2 being able to play all PS1 games, like that's just dope.
Yeah, for sure.
But then the PS3, you have things like region free, at least with PS3 games. So yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, there's so much that goes into like setting up my setups and doing things. Cause yeah, like I have, for that very reason, I have two PS2s, right? So it's like, but I don't, and I have two PS3s, right? And like the reason I have two PS3s is for PS1 games, So like it's, so I could play Japanese ones because the backwards compatible games aren't region free, So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. The worst feeling too when you finally think you got it all set up and then you encounter some like obscure problem that you didn't even know existed.
Exactly.
And you end up, it's like the only way to fix this is, pay like $300 for, another console or something like that. Right. That's pretty bad. All right. Well, our last topic for today, and this is another thing we kind of touched on last week a little bit. It was dead games. And what do I mean by dead games? Well, with the way games are now, a lot of them, not all, obviously, but a lot of them are kind of like living, breathing entities rather than like just an object or a piece or something like that. Because, back in the day, if I go to play, Heart of Darkness or something on the PlayStation 1, it's going to be there unchanged no matter what I do to it, But a game like, as we say, Fortnite or Call of Duty or one of those, multiplayer online games really needs to have people participating in it. It needs to have companies supporting it, running the servers and stuff like that to even be in existence. So the game could just theoretically die and cease to exist at some point. So the question is, what do we do with these games once they're dead? I mean, is there anything that can be, is there ever going to be, I thought with like we see nowadays a lot like good old games, GOG.com, like, they bring back a lot of old obscure PC stuff that's like DRM free and all that stuff. Even with Steam, I mean, you see a lot of old games, Roller Coaster Tycoon and, endless incarnations of Myst that you can buy at your leisure. So I thought, would it be sensible to one day have some kind of service or something like that re-releases or maintains these old dead games in some way, shape, or form so that people can still enjoy them, so that there's a way that people can still play, Fortnite in 2030, online or maybe not, maybe just local or something like that. I mean, what do we do with dead games? It seems like a lot of artwork, a lot of hard work and effort and money and stuff to just, throw in the garbage, basically.
That's what I try to tell people all the time. Like, you're just throwing that away. I can still play my Streets of Rage 2. Good luck playing your Fortnite. Okay, well, first of all, have you heard of Dream Pie?
It sounds familiar.
So it's like it's a service that, does some cool connections and allows you to play like online Dreamcast games. Like now, right?
Like PSO and all that.
Exactly. And so, but the cool thing about stuff like that though, well, about those games too, is like most Dreamcast games like aren't, like quote unquote dead because they still had single player functions, right? So the online was just kind of there. So, because we're doing this now with these games, especially with those like probably more like proprietary or like, like the way those services are probably built, I feel like the things that are out now, like I feel like will definitely be some sort of, Fortnite service or something that allows people to play Fortnite. But my only thing with that though is like, who's gonna do it? Like, who's gonna play it? Because, well, yeah, like you're not so much of who will do it, because it's like, I don't know if Fortnite is really building a, like I don't know if they're building that kind of fan base. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like Phantasy Star Online, for example. Like this is like Phantasy Star, so it's already a storied RPG. It's some weird niche game. So obviously, when it was out, I mean, obviously it never got to the level that Fortnite got. I mean, even if, well, there were versions on PS2 and even, other systems, but it was Phantasy Star. It's weird, right? But it attracts the kind of fan that's going to like love that and play that forever. You know what I'm saying? Whereas like, I feel like Fortnite is just it's just a cool, and I don't want to sound like we're always hating on Fortnite, but I just mean any game like that. It's like a thing you do right now because it's cool. But are people really going to like relive that service in the future?
I don't know. They might. I mean, some people really love that game, it seems like, and are, highly addicted to it. And I mean, even stuff like mobile games. I mean, there's a lot of mobile games that, like, if the company shuts down or the server shuts down or something like that, like it's just lost, seemingly.
Yeah, I've gone through it multiple times.
Right. And so, I mean, I don't know all the legal inner workings behind it all, but I mean, I could easily see there being something in the future where, like, the trademarks run out or something like that on something or whatever it may be. And, or the license shifts to some other company or whatever. And, people bring these things back or outside of that, if people just want to independently, like, are able to just independently recreate these things. 'Cause, I mean, we've seen, one of the first games I ever played, on the PC was the Journeyman Project. And that was just a point and click adventure game, from the early 90s. And there's been several efforts by people to just like faithfully recreate the entire game using like the Unreal Engine and stuff like that. And of course, like none of them I think have gone all the way to completion. But like, we've reached a level to where I think independently just people can create things that are on par with like stuff that we enjoyed, 10, 15 years ago or more. And release them, free to play or on some other, obscure platform or something like that. So I think it's not out of the question to see either, something like Fortnite. Of course, we're just using that as an example, but like whether it's like a direct port of that, owned by Epic or something like that, or if it's just like some very extremely faithful fan recreation of the game or something like that. Because it just seems like such a waste to me, and I can't stop thinking about that. Like the idea that you could spend so much time and so much money invested in these things, and then at some point they're just completely gone forever, and it's just a memory to you. I just don't think that's a problem we haven't really encountered yet, because these games haven't had time to really run their course by and large. I mean, some have, but the big ones I think are still going. And, there's going to be a time when like you just can't play Destiny anymore, when you just can't play Fortnite anymore. And I think that something has to be done about this. It has to be considered at some point. How are we going to maintain this as an object and not just as a, fleeting experience?
Well, look, and that's exactly what I'm saying. See, like I've been saying this for a while now, call anybody in Hyper Evo, and they know that I have been talking about this topic for a while, and, I've been very outspoken on it. Nothing's going to happen. And the reason why is because we have to remember, like, a game like Fortnite was never intended to be an object in the first place. It was never intended to be this cool, piece of art. Excuse me, that, oh yeah, they're doing this and doing that. It was never even intended to be that in the first place. And so when this game, Fortnite is basically a pop-up shop, think of it like a Garrett's pop-up popcorn shop. Like one day you went to the mall and there were some people there from Garrett's selling popcorn. You bought the popcorn, you ate it, you shat it out, and you threw the cup away, and that whole thing is gone now. You know, there's no, it's not like, it wasn't like, your local Jacobson's or JC Penney's or something where you still have, some bags from or relics from, or there's like the building shape is still there and you can go see it. Like that's not what this is. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like people consume Fortnite like they consume food or something, or just some other, like for the most part, like very intangible thing, Mm-hmm. And I mean, things like Destiny are a little bit better, because they do have a little bit more of substance to them. But yeah, with like a lot of these games, yeah, like Warframe or, any of those, just, this is a free to play shooter. I mean, like those are just flat out services. And when they run their course, they will be gone, I'm just waiting for the outcry of gamers who are crying and yelling, because they can't, play their old games or because they miss this. And again, like, cause you gotta think like, like that Dream Pie, for example, like that exists because of how much of a cult following the Dreamcast has, So there's just always gonna, you have people who sit up, like I watched some like YouTube video the other day with this like country ass dude sitting in his like garage, like talking like, well, all right, if you want to play your import games on your Sega Saturn, the first thing you got to do is hook this up. So it's like, this isn't some guy who, is probably a big fan of Lunar the Silver Star, or that you would think so on sight, but for some reason he's like a cult fan of the Saturn. Yeah. So he'll sit up in his garage and like hack his Saturn to make videos about it. Like, is Fortnite getting fans like that? And if it does, like, if they do, like, so, well, and then on top of that too, like, I mean, there's just so many games, like there's so many games now. So it's like, in the future, we're already, it's just the trend is growing. So we're already going to have a whole bunch of new service games, but then you want like revivals of the old ones. Like, what are people going to be playing,
Yeah. And the thing that just occurred to me too is like, it's crazy to think that, because when we grew up, like we can go back and play the majority of the games that we liked growing up.
All of them.
Yeah. I mean, there might be some that are just like impossible to find or whatever, but I mean, but there's like,
well, improbable.
Yeah, right. But there's a generation now that's young, that's growing up, that's not going to have that with their favorite games. And I think like, it's just interesting to think, how's that going to just, how's that going to affect them?
Right. No, yeah, like, no, like that is a huge thing. Because even like take, for example, what they did with, like we mentioned with Namco Museum and what they're doing with like Sonic now, like, I think like we've hit a point to where like some things are just like objectively complex and not like complex subjective to like the time, So yes, of course, like it would have been absurd, at that time back then to release, 30 or 40 Genesis games on a disc, right? Like if that happened, like people's heads would have exploded, right?
Yeah.
At that time. But you can do it today. But like, it doesn't matter when you play Fortnite, like you got to have like 100 people for each game, don't you?
Yeah, something like that.
And so,
at least like 50, I think.
Yeah, like that can't just be like there's no like bypass for that, like. So it doesn't matter if you take those games and put them on a disc and free to play classics edition, and it has Warframe and Fortnite and shit on the disc, like you still need people playing those games online with you,
Yeah. Plus, I mean, they're just too huge anyway. I mean, there's so much DLC and seasons and everything. Like, you probably wouldn't even be able to fit multiple ones on the disc anyway.
And all of that too, because and that was another thing I was going to bring up, because it's like, again, like I bought Streets of Rage 2 one time, right? And I'm always using this as an example. It doesn't matter. Whatever game you want to talk about, Awesome Possum, Earthworm Jim, whatever game you want to talk about. I bought it one time and that was it, right? But like, you kids are going to be like, well, I was going to get, free to play classics, but I can't use my old account and I need all my skins, so I don't want to play it, like it's just so absurd, yeah, like, cause, and ladies and gentlemen, like this is not, I hear what you're saying, Queasy, about how like these games haven't run their course, but look guys, like this is not a problem. Like this isn't something that it's just 20 years off far in the future. Like I've probably mentioned this on this podcast before, and I know I mentioned it in other things I've done with Hyper Evo, but Marvel, this is a great company to look at for this because they have gone through a lot of different stages of this. First of all, they released Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in the PlayStation Store. You remember that?
Yes.
It's gone. Okay. And then they also made like the Marvel versus Capcom classics. I think it had like NBC One and like Marvel Superheroes or something, right? It's gone. Okay.
It's gone.
It's gone. Then like take for example, like Marvel Ultimate Alliance. They took down the DLC for that game for about 3 or 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. And then like it's back now. Or maybe it's not back now, but that DLC is included in the versions you can download on the PS4. But like that DLC like was just gone. And then that whole entire game, Marvel Heroes Omega, like ran its course in about 2 or 3 years. And like that was gone. And luckily for me, I played most of it in like the last 3 months. So I got like my money back. But yeah, like had you been like, you could have just been playing that game for 3 years and spent upwards of $500 on it, buying loot boxes and the new crates and oh shit, Gambit and the Deadpool pack is out. And then a snap of a finger. Oh, our CEO got caught, having sex with cats. And then the whole game is just gone, Sorry.
Damn.
Along with your money.
It wasn't with your money too. That's the thing. It's like, because people, especially with free to play, I mean, they're more willing to spend, like a little bit here, a little bit there, and it adds up. I mean, I know a guy who is a real hardcore Pokemon Go player who said openly that he's probably spent over $150 on that game.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And exactly. Like, it's just like, at some point, like, it's just, there's not going to be anyone playing. The servers will shut down and it's just money. It was just money you spent in that moment on your memories, and that's it.
Right. Yeah, and
I guess it's, to some degree that's okay. I guess if you're fine with it,
it's just 100% gone. And and the thing was, because and I didn't say that like I didn't just say that totally to be like funny, but like the CEO of Gazillion, the company that made that Marvel game, like he got like caught up with something, right? Like there was some like thing he did, like maybe it was like, I can't remember, it's like something with children or just like something, right? Or like he beat his wife. I don't know. It was something though, right? And then that caused Disney to sever ties with them. So then boom, the game is gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like at the drop of a hat, I mean, look, like if Kojima, we found out tomorrow that he was like a ridiculous racist, and he is a Japanese KKK Nazi member, like I'll still have Metal Gear Solid,
Yeah.
Whether or not I want to play it is up to me, but like I'll still have it, So,
well, damn. So it's, I mean, they're just gonna die, I guess, eventually. The games, right. That is, which I think is just unfortunate because, like I was saying, I mean, there is a lot of art and a lot of effort, and all the developers working on these games, and I mean, of course, they're getting paid to do it. Not like they're not getting reciprocated for it, but it's like it just seems a shame to just like all those maps and everything that people made just don't exist anymore. And oh man, and I just guys like I wish, like you guys look, this right here is a classic 90s public service announcement. Like you ain't gonna be able to use that DLC in 20 years. Okay. So watch where you spend your money. Please. And let's not even, now we're talking about like these dead games, right? Now it's one thing
for Streets of Rage, right, to like fully exist on the cartridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's another thing for like Fortnite to totally die, right? The thing I'm most worried about is how, in God's name, am I going to play Street Fighter V with all the characters in 20 years? Because even if you have the disc, they're not all on the disc. You know, like,
some
and like
of them are.
Well, no, only the base ones. You know, the disc for Arcade Edition is not a new disc, right?
Right. This is update.
Yeah, so you get vanilla Street Fighter V. That's all you get.
Yeah.
So, like a whole half of that game would just be gone in 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Which is funny because I remember when Street Fighter Cross Tekken came out and like there was like already DLC characters on disc and people were mad about that. And it's like, you know, really that's kind of what you want, actually.
Yeah, because then it could just be hacked or something. But
so. All right. Well, I think that'll about do it for these games. We'll let them rest in peace, I think.
Right. Fortnite.
Anything else you got? Any announcements? Mars Vindicator's World, Hyper Evo happenings, anything?
I mean, I wouldn't say nothing too big. I'm always going through my whole rebrandings, and I've recently taken upon a new direction for my game collecting. So hopefully we'll get some cool content coming up here soon. I'll just say that.
All right, nice. All right, well, I think that'll wrap it up for this episode of Status Quo. This was number 12, so we got a dozen going on here.
There it is. Yeah, we're pretty consistent with our shows. I'm not talking to anybody in particular, but if they happen to be watching this or listening to this, I just want to say we're pretty consistent. You know.
Yeah, doing all right.
Yeah,
doing all right. Every Monday. Come rain or shine.
Is it come rain or shine? Come baby mama drama. You know, come unpaid bills. Come internet throttle. You know, come consoles down. Come red ring of death. You know.
Yep. Fell down, scraped your knee up. You know, whatever it is.
Exactly. You know, lost your purse.
Yeah. Yeah. I just lost mine last. I mean, never. This has been Status Quo.
This is Status Quo.
This is Queasy Crayfish.
And I am Mars Vindicator.
And we'll see you next Monday.
We're out of here.